the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laureate. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hello, this is Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman, and this is your Business Story of the Week.
Fantastic. And that is lovely. Dr. Khadijah, she's going to be our guest for today. My name is Joshua. Of course, I am your host. Every week, every episode, every day, we bring you a question. And today's question is, what does it mean to truly liberate a voice through art? And Dr. Khadijah is the perfect guest to answer that question for us today. Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman is a visionary cultural curator, poet laureate of Prince George's County, Maryland, and founding director of Liberated Muse Arts Group and Black Writers for Peace and Social Justice. With over 2 decades of experience, she excels as a performance artist, educator, writer, playwright, and podcaster. Her work empowers marginalized voices through transformative artistic and educational initiatives, and she's recognized leader in homeschooling research and community education. She has such a stellar, career. I am very excited to have her on to this show. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Khadijah, how are you doing? Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Joshua. It is so wonderful to be here with you today, and for us to be engaging from our different time zones. I love that. And so thank you for having me.
Well, of course, these things, Dr. Khadijah, there are no borders, the world, global, we're trying to bring platforms and have conversations in platforms that, we give conversations to those platforms that matter, the conversations that matter, so to speak. Dr. Khadijah, you have quite a prolific career. You have quite, you're poet laureate. You're the founder, and of course, you have had such an impact in the community surrounding you. But I wanted to ask, and they always kick off the show like this. What was the young Dr. Khadijah like? What was she? Was she always a writer? Did she always know she was going to be a poet? What would the young Dr. Khadijah say to the Dr. Khadijah of today?
Wow, what a wonderful question. So I tend to think that I've been a writer as long as I've been a reader. Learned to read when I was 3 years old, and words and understanding what words meant really unlocked all the mysteries that were around me. And so beginning to read instilled in me the want to create these symbols and these messages that I
Yes.
now was able to decipher as a reader. And so I remember very early on, just making up songs and things. I loved words that rhymed. I loved hearing just how words sounded and sometimes how different they sounded and unexpected the
Right.
sound was of a word after reading it. And so
Hmm.
just having this relationship with words really began to blossom into different interests, from writing
Right.
songs, writing poems, writing stories. I'm a playwright. And so
Hmm.
all of
Hmm.
as a young person, I just definitely um love this idea of writing, but I also love storytelling in general. So young Khadijah would dress up and act out scenes from my favorite movie of all times is The Wiz. And so I just I'm really, and those characteristics that I had as a young person are really
Hmm.
the things that I hold close and which inspire the creativity that I continue to have and to engage in as an adult.
I love that, and today you continue to do that. You continue to the inspiration that you found earlier on. You turned it into this career of yours, and you are teaching the same. Not only are you teaching, but you're impacting communities around you as well. And of course, you are not only a poet, you're also a playwright. And you spoke about words. You talk about the impact of words and how you
Mhm.
put them together, the sound of words. How do you see the written word transforming, whether it's spoken or performed? Do you feel like there's significant difference there? And when it comes to writing, how do you approach them differently?
That is such an excellent question. No one has ever asked me that. And it's interesting because the process, the Poet Laureate program is very
Mhm.
new in Prince George's County. I'm actually only the
Oh,
second Poet Laureate
oh
that the
wow.
county has had. And many people that ask me, what is that process? How were you selected? Because
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of poetry books out.
Right.
I am a researcher, and a lot of the poetry that I've written has been performed. And
Mhm.
so that's why your question is so fantastic, because over the past year or so, as the Poet Laureate, I have been writing a lot more to be read in books. I released this book for the girls who do
There
too
you
much. I
go.
released that this month
Oh,
on August 2nd, and it's
beautiful.
the second book that I've released since being a
Wow.
poet laureate. And I will tell you, Joshua, that writing for the page is very different than when I
Uh-huh.
write for performances. So I was
Yes.
selected as poet laureate with a history of performing for over 20 years. And,
Hmm.
my poems have been in my plays. I've done poetry and spoken word on songs. I've performed at the Kennedy Center, my poetry. But writing for the page is very different in terms of it's very much like visual art, where
Right.
it's really in the eye of the beholder how someone looks at a piece, what resonates with them,
Hmm.
despite what the intention of the artist is. And when you write something for someone to read, as opposed to them hearing and seeing all the other elements that you add,
Yes.
whether it's the breath, the
Hmm.
pause, the movement of your body, it's
Hmm.
very different. And it's actually, for me, way more, I feel a bit more vulnerable having my
Right.
written word um, and knowing my intent and having it being interpreted by a reader based on what resonates with them and what their own interpretation is. And so it's very
Wow.
different, and it's been very challenging for me, but I love it this
Hmm.
past year in terms of building my practice of my poetry being on the page.
I love that. I love that, Doctor. Of course, it's. I love how you point out the differences of it, but also it seems like the similarities as well all boils down to a passion for it. I mean, it feels
Yes.
like you have to absolutely love it as well, but it takes a lot of skill, of course, like having to be able to write both. As a playwright and a poet, that is a lot. I love that you showed us that book just now for the girls who do too much. Is it a collection of poems?
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
It's a collection of poems that most of them were written within the last few years, but some of them are older pieces. And the
Mhm.
title of the book is actually a poem based on it is the title of one of the poems that
Wow.
I wrote maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I
Mhm.
would present it, and women would just respond to it in a way like, "Oh my goodness, thank you." And I always refer to it, it's a poem, but it's an affirmation prayer as well, because it's
Mhm.
really speaking to those women who often go through certain things that and feel unseen. And
Wow.
so,
I love that. And you're giving voice to those women as well. And not just with the women who feel unseen. I feel like people who need help. And this has been a mission of yours. This is something that you do in your role as what is called a cultural curator.
mm,
Dr. Key, you just talk to us a little bit about that. What does a role entail of being a cultural curator, and how does this work intersect with your work in education?
oh, great. You have some fantastic questions. From one podcaster to another, your questions are dynamic.
Thank you.
So no one again has never asked me
Wow.
what cultural curator is. And so I love this word
Mhm.
curator, because typically when
Mhm.
we hear the term curator, we think of someone who works in a museum. And what
Yes.
they're doing in a museum is creating an exhibit for us to learn and to engage with. And so
I
they
see.
may not be the person who is creating the elements that may be in an exhibit, but
Mhm.
they're gathering them and they're creating a story, a through line, so that it's cohesive enough for folks to know what this exhibit is about and what the
Right.
takeaways and what the intention is. And
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
that term curator is one that I really apply to all of the work that I do. Even when I'm a researcher and I created my company, Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars, in 2020
Mhm.
when I was getting my doctorate. And when COVID was happening, a lot of parents were pulling their students out of the school system because it wasn't a seamless transition to virtual learning. So they wanted to begin homeschooling. And my
Right.
research was on homeschool children. And so I shared my research, but also my experience as a homeschooling mother. I homeschooled my daughter off and on for 13 years. And
Wow.
so what I would tell parents is that they are not necessarily going to have to be the lead facilitator for their children. They will have
Hmm.
to be the curator of their children's learning experience. And so, this idea of curation is really being knowledgeable enough to know that you don't know everything, but knowing where to access things and to create this accessibility for others. And so, as a
Right.
cultural curator, I'm crafting experiences for people. I'm curating the experience. So, I may be the presenter, I may be the performer or the playwright, but I
Right.
also am creating spaces that, and introducing other people who are creators and who are
Hmm.
creating and contributing to an experience. And the cultural aspect of it is that we are always engaged in cultural work when we are introducing things that a group of people do, whether it's their
Mm,
behaviors, their music, their art.
I love that.
That's what culture is. And so I use the word cultural curator because a lot of the work that I do is specific to many cultural practices of groups
I love that.
of people.
Again, it's like it's touching up on on giving a voice, right? But you
Hmm.
mentioned giving a voice to women who feel unseen. We talked about also giving a voice to communities as well, to marginalized communities, marginalized voices. I love the word cultural curator because you are giving a platform. Like we were
Yeah,
talking about that, we're giving
that's
a
what you are
platform now.
too. You're a
Exactly. Oh,
cultural
thank you.
curator. That's the work that you do
Ah,
with
I
your
love that.
podcast and having people share their different stories regarding their business. That's what the work that you're doing is you
I
are a
love.
cultural curator.
Ah, thank you so much, Dr. Khadijah. I love that. I'm going to use that term now from now on. I'm a cultural
Yes,
creator.
that's
Um,
right.
I want to get a little deeper into that because, of course, you've done your work in education and research as well. And also as a cultural curator, again, you impact the communities around you. Talk to us a bit about that journey. What got you started in there, and also why is it such a major part of what you do, and again, what got you started in that journey?
It's so interesting because so my undergraduate degree is
Hmm.
in interdisciplinary studies, which is an option for you to really create your major. You have to choose your classes. It has to get approved. It's a process, but it's for those students who really don't feel that any of the available majors really mirror your interest. And so a lot of
Hmm.
students may choose two disciplines or just create a whole new discipline. And that's pretty much what I did. At the time, I was at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. There was no mass media program. It is now.
Hmm.
It's really interesting. Is that I created for myself an African American Studies and Mass Media program. That was my major
Right.
under the interdisciplinary studies
Right.
option, and I wanted to go into media, which can mean so much: television,
Right.
film,
Of course.
but really creating messages. And so I got my master's in mass communications at Towson University. But what I always found is that even in that work, even when I was working as a journalist
Hmm.
or as a, using video to convey messages, in some way I was always teaching. So I
Right.
wound up going into nonprofit and working with young people, and I was teaching. And
Hmm.
so that just, it was, so I never went to school until I got my doctorate. I wasn't like a certified elementary school teacher, but I was always teaching in out of school time, teaching college students. I began to teach college students
Uh-huh.
communication studies. And so that was my journey, is that it wasn't just really this straight path. And while I was doing this, I was performing, I was engaging in the arts. And even though it wasn't my major, it was still a passion. And I was
Hmm.
approaching it in a professional way that eventually led to professional opportunities. And so
Right.
that's pretty much
Wow.
been my trajectory of really having many irons in the fire, doing a lot of things and
Wow.
recognizing the intersections.
Wow, I love that. And there is a lot of intersection in there, a lot of intersection in education and giving people voices and art. Of course, in art, transformative art, and, artistic expression initiatives. Dr. Khadijah, talk to us a little more in depth about these initiatives. What are the things that you do when it comes to also your education background, and what are the current initiatives that you are undertaking and you're putting out there so the communities could also have opportunities that they otherwise would not have when it comes to art and education.
Okay. Well, I started a nonprofit this year
Hmm.
called Black Writers for Peace and Social Justice.
Yes.
I had worked at for a number of years with the nonprofit, literary nonprofit, and determined that I really believe that a lot of times Black writers in particular aren't aware of the ways that their writing can impact change.
Hmm.
And then when we speak of peace and social justice, it really is an element of liberation at the core. How are
Right.
we writing really to save our lives and to save the lives of others? And,
Hmm.
and it's not really a rhetorical question. It's really in the tradition of writers such as James Baldwin, Zora
Right.
Neale Hurston,
Mhm.
writers who have come before, who may not have been identified as writer for liberation, but taking
Right.
a look at what their journey was, just like you're asking me about my journey, looking at their journey and looking at the ways that their writing has impacted the world around them. And
Hmm.
so I created pretty much, I didn't create a genre, but I'm
Right.
defining a genre of writing for liberation,
I love
which
that.
is reading works by writers such as
Hmm.
Baldwin, such as Randall Robinson, such as
Right.
Audre Lorde, and
I love
teaching writers what are some of the elements and the ways that they have um, used their writing to give voice to liberatory practice.
that.
And
Hmm.
so I've
Hmm.
begun teaching classes this year, offered a class in partnership with Mahogany Books based in Washington, D.C. I've also done some virtual classes. And I plan on having some learning experiences for writers in the coming
Okay.
months around this idea of writing for liberation.
Hmm.
Also, start teaching this fall on Monday as associate professor of English with
Oh
Coppin
wow.
State University. And I hope to help them with designing a
Nice.
journalism program and sharing some of these practices that I've developed
Hmm.
through my nonprofit.
I love that. And I listen to all of this and all I can think about is that is very cool. It's so absolutely cool because it's something that I feel like people we need it more in the world, that's for sure.
Mhm.
We need
Mhm.
more voices, people who don't feel like they are heard or unseen. We need a platform for their voices, but more importantly, Dr. Khadijah, I think what you're doing, like you say, you're defining that genre, and I love it. We could call it something like liberated literature. It's
Mm.
like it's putting into the forefront how important this type of literature is,
Mhm.
especially now of all
Mhm.
days. More
Mhm.
importantly today and what is happening, I feel like talking about that topic and allowing that topic to be accessible for people to learn it, for anyone who wants to get into it, for anyone who are interested. And of course, there is a path that you are offering them today. And I think it's just fascinating that there's this opportunity. They have this opportunity. Of course, Dr. Khadijah's website is khadijah ali-coleman.com. You guys can check out her website there. We'll drop it over on the links. That is Khadijah Ali Coleman.com. We'll make sure to put it up there on the links again in the description. Dr. Khadijah, where else can we find you? Where else can we learn more about you?
Oh, thank you for giving me space to share. I would love for folks to check out Black Family Homeschool work.
Mhm.
I will be releasing soon a new program, American Institute for Homeschool Educators, which will be an opportunity for those who want to work with homeschool children to get certified. It's a certification program. And so that's blackfamilyhomeschool.org. It actually, that program will be open to everyone. It's not just Black families, for those who want to work with homeschool children. And you can also
Wow.
learn more about me at liberatedmuse.com to learn about
Mhm.
my arts company, Liberated Muse Arts Group.
Liberatedmuse.com, blackfamilyhomeschool.org. Make sure to check those out, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Dr. Khadijah, are you in any of the socials? Would love to follow you.
Yes, I'm on Instagram. I'm on the platform formerly known as Twitter, and I am on it's Instagram. I'm on TikTok as well, and all of those are
Mhm.
at Khadijah Online, and that's Khadijah online. So
All
I would
right.
love to link up with folks there.
Fantastic. Make sure to go check those out, ladies and
I'm on
gentlemen. Dr.
Facebook too.
Khadijah. You
I
make
forgot
yeah,
about
get
Facebook. Right.
yeah, Facebook, of course. Facebook, Instagram, again, X, formerly Twitter, or whatever. You know, they're
Right.
up there. Dr. Khadijah's up there. Go check her out. Go connect with her. Dr. Khadijah, it's been lovely having you on here. Thank you so much.
Thank
One
you,
last bit
Joshua.
of
Okay.
wisdom to leave behind our audiences. What would it be? Take us home.
I would recommend that everyone really try to remember who you are,
Wow.
connect with that part of you that
Wow.
you felt you're most free, and try to incorporate that in your everyday practice so that you can just remember and feel alive at every moment possible. And that's where your creativity comes from.
Wow, that is fascinating. That is true. That is very, very true. Thank you so much, Dr. Khadijah. Everything that you have said here is wonderful and insightful, and I'm very honored, by the way, to have a poet
Oh,
laureate to have you as a guest on here today. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
thank you for having me. And you have a great evening there. And thank you for
Absolutely.
connecting with me. Take care.
To all our audience and listeners out there, thank you for watching an episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.